So, Professor Miller, once again, thank you so much for being with us. It's such a pleasure. It's a true privilege. And we had a memorable session last year, and we are so happy that you allowed us the joy, and this is the right word, of being with you once again. So, on behalf of this new group of people, we are very grateful for your incredible generosity of sharing your precious time with us. As I mentioned before, we are thrilled to be here, and we know that you receive many invitations. And of course, this only makes us even more grateful for the opportunity of having this conversation. And as you know, Professor, this is a group composed by business and thought leaders of many of Brazil's leading companies. Most of them here are at the C level or on boards of directors. And under this leadership program, we are having these conversations about critical issues every month, but not only about the professional life, but about life from a broader perspective. And on top of that, we have these special sessions with inspiring, leading thinkers like yourself, who are our guides to think better about all these subjects, and of course, to act accordingly. And Professor, you don't need introductions, but for the sake of starting this event in a more formal way, I'd like to highlight to all participants that Professor Miller is a professor in the clinical psychology program at Columbia University, and she is the founder of the Spirituality Mind Body Institute, which is the first Ivy League graduate program in spirituality and psychology. And Professor Miller has also held over a decade of joint appointments in the Department of Psychiatry at Columbia University Medical School. And she's, of course, a foremost scientist on spirituality across her lifespan. And she has an innovative research, quantifying, let's say this way, the effects of spirituality on in health, resilience, thriving. And her research has been published in the most prestigious journals in more than 100 peer-reviewed articles. And so this includes the American Journal of Psychiatry, Cerebral Cortex, and the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And so Professor Miller is the author of these two bestsellers. So this is the more recent one, as far as I know, The Awakened Brain, The New Science of Spirituality, and Our Quest for an Inspired Life. I would say it's a mandatory reading for everyone. And The Spiritual Child, The New Science of Parenting for Health and Lifelong Thriving. So two wonderful textbooks. And just to conclude, Professor Miller is the editor of the Oxford University Press Handbook of Psychology and Spirituality. She is the founding co-editor-in-chief of the American Psychological Association, the APA, Journal of Spirituality and Clinical Practice. And she's a graduate of Yale and the University of Pennsylvania, and she received her doctorate directly from the founder of the positive psychology movement, Martin Seligman. So, Professor Miller, without further ado, so I don't know, how do you prefer for us to start this conversation? If you want to make an introduction, or if you want us to start making questions, we are, of course, up to whatever format that it's better for you. So thank you so much. We're only grateful for you.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I have been looking at each of you. I just, can't wait to come to Brazil in April, but right now I feel as if I'm almost there, and it's just a joy to see you. Thank you for including me today. This is joyful. May we start with a 90-second practice? Is that okay? Great. I'm going to invite you into a 90-second practice. This is in the language of life. Okay. I'm going to invite you, if you'd like, to close your eyes, clear out your inner space, and take 5 breaths. In your inner chamber, I invite you to set before you a table. This is your table. And to your table, you may invite anyone, living or deceased, who truly has your best interests in mind. Anyone living or deceased who truly has your best interest in mind. And with them all sitting there, ask them if they love you. And now you may invite your higher self, the part of you that is so much more than anything you may have or not have, anything you may have done or not done, your true, eternal, higher self. And ask you if you love you. And now finally, you may invite your higher power, whatever word is yours, however you know your higher power. And ask if they love you. And now with all of these people sitting here right now, what do they need to tell you now? What do they need to share? What do you need to know? And when you're ready, I invite you back. This is your counsel, and they always are there for you. Who shows up may change depending on where we are in the road of life, and we can ask at that moment what's on our heart. We can bring to counsel impasses, pains, struggles. We can bring to counsel gratitude, illumination. Your counsel is there. And may I suggest that they are really there. What we'll explore is that you have a deep birthright. This, which you've just engaged, is your natural awakened awareness, your capacity to be in a transcendent relationship. Here, with the deep spirit, soul consciousness of those who truly have your best interest in mind, whether embodied or not at the moment, your deep, eternal, higher self, your spirit consciousness, and your higher power, whether you understand your higher power as the universe, or as God, or as Jesus, whatever your understanding may be. There is one human porthole for transcendent awareness, and we all have it. And the science that we're discussing today is a science that through many lenses, MRI studies, genetic studies, long-term clinical course studies, bears witness to your inborn capacity for transcendent relationship. I want to see clearly. Are we holding, this is discussion style, is that right? So you're going to ask me a question and we'll roll? Okay.
Yes.
Can we talk about how people experienced that? Yeah. Would anyone like to share who came or what was told to you? If you feel called or the moment to share.
Don't be shy.
I wanted to share. Last year when we did this exercise.
Yes.
uh, who came was my brother.
Mm.
And this year, the person who showed up was my godmother, my godmother. And she said to me to live life. So it was very touching.
Kika, please.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for being with us this morning.
It's a joy.
So when you presented the invitation for us, the first thing that came up to my mind, given the moment I'm going through, is the fact that this can be dynamic. Someone that maybe has sat for decades at the table because of the self-awareness and your understanding that your inner power is so much broader, and you have been limiting yourself to a smaller space, and now you realize that you take other people to the table, people who help you understand that you're so much bigger than the space you have been devoting yourself for so many decades. So life goes through cycles, and our table of dear people who really see ourselves legitimately change as well. So that's the beauty of the exercise.
Beautiful. Yes, who comes to the table will change in your journey. And maybe how you even envision the second chair, your higher self may change. How you come to know and perceive and realize your highest self. Glorious. Thank you for such a generous, profound sharing. Lots of people were very taken. I'm watching the community, very moved by what you shared.
Yes. We are very united here, connected, Professor Miller. So this is a very safe place for us to be, which is very important. Patricia, please.
I was just amazed. Sorry, I was just amazed by how a simple exercise like this can bring out this trust in ourselves. It's really impressive.
Yes, it is so elegantly simple.
Yeah.
My view that sometimes if you will, cleaves nature at the joints, if it really holds something deep true, it is simple, like a single faceted jewel. It holds light. I'm grateful that it resonated for you. I'll share with you two things about that practice. The first is that was a gift from the late Dr. Gary Weaver, who shared that practice with people who had struggled with their faith, because I'll put it this way. Here is the flame. Here's the truth. Here's God's presence, the reality of the universe, the fire. And here's the long pole to the torchbearer, the human being carrying the message. And the human being carrying the message, the sacred message, could walk the walk in the light, could talk the walk in the light, or the human being carrying the message could be a little foibled. And we hear people say, my grandma, she always talked about God, but she was so mean to me. Or, my clergy person taught about religion, and then I found out this horrible indecency. So there could be a foible in the little human being. Or they could be quite egregiously foibled as a human being and harm someone. And when that happens, when the torchbearer, the human, does not walk the walk, there's a tendency to throw out the flame for the child, the emerging adult. And even into adulthood, people can hold on to the notion, well, the torchbearer was a big phony. Torchbearer was a hypocrite, and they didn't walk the walk of the flame. I'm throwing out everything they said. And what Gary Weaver did with this practice was invite people into a direct relationship to the flame. This practice, in the language of life, is a practice that invites you into a direct awakening of your transcendent capacity to experience spirit, God, the universe. Second, part 2 on this practice is having studied for 25 years, now 27, one thing, which is the human capacity for spiritual life and how profoundly game-changing it is onto the rest of our lives when we realize our spiritual nature. We are healthier, we are less addicted, less depressed, less given to the diseases of despair. We are better to one another. We see each other of the heart. We don't care what someone's politics are. We don't care if they're, living on this side or that side of the tracks. We love them and know them of the heart. And finally, relational ethics extend to our beautiful natural world, to the living beings around us. We see ourselves as part of the living reality of the unitive sacred world. And this all comes from an awakening of how we're built to see and know. Traditions through time have put this at the center, and we're now getting it back. We're now reclaiming our birthright. And so why I am so excited to talk to you, leaders in Brazil. What came to me at my table, I will share with you the science. What came to me at my table is it is time to act. And Brazil is a country with a deep running golden thread of spiritual awareness. You have this. You do understand ancestors. You have the kingdom. You have Eden that surrounds you, the source. And you are the keepers. But it's not kept only through the lens of the 20th century. It's kept through the awakened heart and the knowing that you have. So that's what came to me, is that I am here today to share this science, but I've given thousands of talks on science. I'm here because I want to join you to act. Brazil, leaders of Brazil can do this. You're a spiritual country and you're running it.
Oh, fantastic, Professor Miller.
That's what came. Do you know who it
Yeah.
came from? It came from my grandfather at the table.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Professor Miller, I'd like to start
Okay.
with
So you have
question.
discussion, right? We're supposed to have discussion. Yes.
Yes, we
The
can.
Awakened Brain.
Someone-
Thank you for reading The Awakened Brain. Yes.
Yeah, because of course, this is such a wonderful book for life, I would say. But could we start with you sharing with us why did you choose spirituality as your field of inquiry and research? What brought you here? And of course, this is a question that they always make to you. And how do you define spirituality? Because perhaps different people see it in different ways. And why do you say that we all have this capacity inside of us, to live a better life in terms of everything, health, resilience, striving, wisdom? And why do you have this belief that we really have it with us?
Yeah, thank you. So if you ask a scientist to define spirituality, a scientist, if they stay in their lane, and I'll try, does not define spirituality all told. We can point to threads of lived human spiritual life that through the lens of science are profoundly changing onto the rest of our lives. They change the whole way we live, the way we feel, the way we interact in our health and wellness. So scientists don't define spirituality. We identify threads of lived human spiritual life that are profoundly game-changing onto the rest of our life. And we identify threads of lived human spiritual life and trace their formation. Okay. So part 1. Part 2 is, well, what is the difference between spirituality and religion? I heard that twice already. If you ask a scientist, we might turn to a twin study. We look at twins raised together, twins raised apart, and factor out how similar they are on any human capacity, height, weight, temperament, IQ, as a function of shared genes and shared environment. Any human capacity can be weighed as being environmental, inborn, or a combination. You are all leaders. You're all very smart. Your parents must have been very proud because you were born smart. IQ is 60% inborn. Temperament. If you're extroverted or introverted, if you're laid back or more front-footed, temperament is half inborn, half environmentally formed. If I'm an introvert, I can push myself to give a public talk. If I'm an extrovert, I can create quiet moments. The capacity through which we experience transcendent relationship, what you just shared here this morning, is 1/3 innate. It is innate. It is in our brain. It is hardwired. And 2/3 environmentally formed. For an inborn quality, that is a tremendous amount of input. And as adults, we choose our input. Meditation, prayer, our inner environment. Service, right action. Reading sacred text. Connecting with nature and caring for nature. Service and right action. So 1/3 innate, 2/3 environmentally formed means that we have a tremendous input onto the formation of our birthright, our natural spiritual core. Religion, that's spirituality. Let's think of two overlapping circles. That was spirituality. Religion is a gift of our parents and grandparents. We might choose a faith tradition and immerse ourselves. Text, community, ceremony. All these gifts are environmentally transmitted. Religion itself is 100% environmentally transmitted. Where do spirituality and religion meet? Well, for 2/3 of people, really more like 70% on our planet, religion and spirituality go hand in hand. People will say, my deep transcendent relationship, what we just shared, is held in my faith tradition. The way we understand the third chair, our higher power, the way that we connect, pray, carries the voice of our parents and grandparents or the sacred texts we've read our lives. 2/3 of people. But whether or not we are religious, we all are spiritual beings. Some people who are spiritual but not religious will say, I feel spiritually alive and connected in nature. I'm aware of the deep sacred oneness or the presence of force. I was touched by source. There's a sense that we are part of this great symphony of life, whether or not it's conceptualized in a religious way. That is the most important bedrock, because what has happened is that in the 20th century, in the very good effort, it was a good effort in global entrepreneurial culture, in post-industrial sophisticated communities, what has happened is that in the attempt to be inclusive, there's been a silencing of religion, but that wasn't inclusive. You know, they said, take down the Christmas tree, take down the Hanukkah menorah from the city square. We want to be inclusive. It turned out after 40 years, this happened in the 80s, to be radically exclusive. It silenced spiritual life across everybody. And so whether I'm Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Catholic or Jewish or Jain, whatever I might be, a truly pluralistic, a truly inclusive, diverse world is one in which we know each other deeply and bring forward the deepest core of who we are. And that is why it's time for a global pluralistic spiritual discourse. But it has to be led from the top. And why is it we have to be good to nature? That is a deep imperative. It's a spiritual, self-evident, natural right of us and all living beings. There's deep spiritual mooring, rooting in all of our contemporary discussions.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor. I'm going to hand over to Angela. And folks, please don't be shy. Raise your hands to ask questions.
I forgot to say something important. And because this is innate, because it is innate, you have circuits in your brain. The awakened brain is about this. You have circuits in your brain, the 1/3 innate, through which we receive and perceive sacred presence. And whether you are religious or not, you still have these circuits. And whether, if you are religious, you're Catholic or Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Catholic or Jewish, you still have the same circuits. So there's one spiritual brain, 7.4 billion beautiful spiritual brains on our earth and humans, and we all have it.
Wow.
Okay, that's the important point. And while there's human variability, as in math or music, and while there's strength in building your spiritual brain, this is yours, and we can track the components of perception of the transcendent. And we can get into that in more detail if you'd like, or we can keep going. Your call.
Okay. Yes, I think we can go deeper on this, because my question is about if you can see the difference, if there is a difference between gender in the belief in the spirituality, and because in our Western world, I think more men tend to say they are skeptical, or they are not religious, or they are not spiritual. And this is seems especially in the scientific world, right? In the academia and etc. Like, if it is being skeptical about spirituality, it would be a kind of strength. And what the research shows is that it's the opposite. Is that if you have the spirituality, you don't have a weakness, you have a strength. So do you see any difference between people that tell that they are spiritual, or they tend to between the genders? Do you see the difference or not?
Thank you, Angela. Inside all of us, every human being is a table of knowers, a committee of knowers. We all have an empiricist. We all have a logician. We have an intuitive. We have a mystic. And we have a skeptic. And everybody is welcomed to the table of inner knowing. And for each form of knowing, we have a neural correlate. There are organic ways of knowing, organic epistemologies, ways of knowing. When we bring into relationship, conversation, ways of knowing, we literally myelinate the tracks, pave the highways between regions of the brain. What does that look like? I can't figure out whether or not I should move my family to another city. I just have this deep, deep, deep feeling in my heart that it feels wrong. What does that look like? I have to make a decision, a very big decision about my company. And I can look at the numbers, and I can make lists, and I can look at pros and cons and run an analysis, but that doesn't answer the question. There's a deep, deep, I have a deep spiritual sense in my prayer life. I have a dream that wakes me up in the night. I have a synchronicity where 3 people in one day tell me exactly what I was wondering. I've asked a question that is empirically driven, and I've received an answer that is mystical. Synchronicity, dream, prayer life. When we draw into conversation, deep consort, ways of knowing, and myelinate the tracks between regions of the brain, our brain is more innovative. It is more creative. It came to me, and I worked with them for 3 years in just this way, the Pentagon. The Army calls it situational awareness, showing up for the truth. The Army can train and train and train and train and go out that red door, and the red door on the very important day is stuck, and you've got to find the yellow door. So we have in us the capacity for greater innovation, a more sacred life, most importantly. And the creativity, yes, in our professional life, and even more importantly, in our lived journey as souls on earth, as parents, as grandparents, as treaters of the planet. Very important. We showed this through the lens of science through a process called DTI, diffusion tensor imaging, where you look at the amount of water that squirts along a neuron versus squirts out the side of a neuron. And if a neuron is highly myelinated, you'll see a higher ratio of water moving along the neuron. And that is what we found in people who engage multiple forms of knowing. That we call being in a stance of quest. What is life showing me now? What is, from the bottom up, the universe revealing to me now? What has Source touched my heart to say? Very, very open, awakened way of living. And life then doesn't need to be controlled. You as entrepreneurs and leaders know that the bottom line is we do not live in an anthropocentric universe. The human does not control the universe. We plan, we strategize, but successful people, you know that we do not control all variables. And when we realize that, yes, we've done our part, and yes, we've done the research and the tactics and the strategy, but what is life showing me now? What is the universe revealing to me now? This form of receptive perception is extraordinarily important. Can we do one more practice?
Yes, sure. We are, for us, we are
May we
at
do
your
one more
disposal.
practice? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. This practice is immediately relevant to multiple forms of inborn knowing and how you probably already have engaged these multiple forms of knowing. It's an invitation for you and perhaps to share with your children, grandchildren, and people who work for you. So I'm going to invite you to take 5 breaths once again to clear out your inner space. Close your eyes if you'd like. I invite you to locate a time where you wanted something so badly that red door was yours. So you tactically prepared. You researched A plus B plus C. You strategically laid it out. You went for your red door. You grabbed the handle, but it's stuck. And you can't believe it's stuck because A plus B plus C. You had done everything right. Tactically, strategically, you're stunned. It doesn't add up. You might rattle the handle. You might shove the door. You might be angry or depressed in time, but only because that red door is stuck. You turn around 60, 70, 140 degrees, and there is a wide open yellow door. A yellow door. You might have not known yellow doors exist, not heard of yellow doors, never heard at all. But on the other side of the yellow door is someone who makes you feel alive, is a new job opportunity that you didn't know existed, is a partner, a collaborator, an investor who sees you beyond what you even knew in yourself. That yellow door was not what you had wanted. It was better, and better for you. And as you sit back now and you look at the stuck red door that you wanted so much and the hairpin turn that took you to the wide open yellow door, the yellow shining door that has so much to do with who you are and where you are today. At that hairpin turn, was there anyone pointing the way? It could have been a trusted colleague or friend who for 2 minutes told you a story you'd never heard from them. Nothing you'd ever known. It could have been a therapist or a trusted coach. It could have been someone you met for 3 minutes at a party or the coffee shop, pointing you synchronistically to the wide open yellow door. On all days, it was just that day that you'd met the trail angel. And as you sit way back, stuck red door, hairpin turn, trail angel, and wide open yellow door, how really are the most important parts of our lives found? Is it narrowly and only through planning and strategy? Sure, we must do our part. But are the biggest parts of our lives found in dialogue with the deeper force that is in us, through us, and around us? Stuck red door, hairpin turn, trail angel, wide open yellow door. Where in your road of life is God, the universe, your higher power? Is source in the wide open yellow door and the stuck red door? Is source, universe, God in the trail angel? And you're being an open system in dialogue with the sacred transcendent presence in our lives. Have you been on a spiritual path all along? When you're ready, I invite you.
It's powerful.
No, you're on mute.
It's
Yeah.
Did anyone have the yellow door? Would anyone like to share?
Someone wants to share?
Can I share before I make my question?
Yeah, go on.
Well, the yellow door, so the red door was not about work or whatever. So the red door was all of my trials to get pregnant. So I had 3 IVs and it was, and a doctor told me, you know, Lara, you are like, you think that everything that you plan will go your way because you're very planned and you're strategic, but this is not the same. It might not happen. And it didn't happen. So my red door was there. It was very, very difficult. But my trail angel was when I moved jobs from Bayer in Venezuela to Roche in Venezuela. A person in the organization came to me and she was my yellow door. She took me to a foundation where I met my 3 children. So they are siblings. So I had like and this made me learn that sometimes when something doesn't go right, it's because it's even more right. Because if from your heart you want something, you have just to connect and this will come. And my mother used to tell that sometimes you ask for something and you will not get what you want, but you will get what you need. So when you were talking about it, my yellow door and my red door were so clear.
What a sacred, magnificent journey. That we are not makers of our path, but discoverers of our journey. Yes. And what we think we want is only based on information today backwards. It is historically driven.
Exactly.
But what is in store if we say yes to the discovery, to treating life as a sacred quest, has information that has yet to unfold before us. That high pixel hit in our heart of intuition, the awakening in the dream, the knowing of a synchronicity, the trail angel, when you changed jobs, right? And here it was at work that your deep personal life, you found the trail angel too, right? The trail angel. That has profound sacred information, whatever your cosmology may be. That has yet to unfold before us. We know there's information because of the sense of that hit, the catch in the catcher's mitt. That who here has had a feeling where you just knew, and yet what has to unfold before us is the details, the richness. Just knew you should take that job, but why and for what? So much bigger and better. So I found my son Isaiah. I share this in The Awakened Brain in an orphanage north of St. Petersburg, Russia. And there he was. And we were speaking a bit about parenting and grandparenting. And so I'll share that how do we support spiritual awareness in our children and grandchildren? And how do we prepare them to have this deep seat of awakened brain when they really need it? Right? Always for a bigger sacred life, but when they really, really must have it to prevent against despair, to have post-traumatic spiritual growth, have developmental depression, not fall down, right? How do we do that? So I'll share with you a story. May I? Yeah. Okay. Isaiah was so wanted. We prayed and prayed for Isaiah, and we weren't alone. Our parents and grandparents, Pop and Grandma, the great-grandparents, and my mother and father, everyone prayed for Isaiah. So when we found Isaiah, we wanted him to know the truth from our spiritual heart of who he is to us and how God, my word is God, you use your word, makes families. Whether through conception, adoption, marriage, God makes families. The universe makes families. So we said this. We said, Isaiah, Mommy prayed for Isaiah. Daddy prayed for Isaiah. Pop and Grandma prayed for Isaiah. And then, remember, he's 1 year old. We took a plane to a train to an automobile. Little kids love buses. We ran up the hill, and there was Isaiah. And we threw Isaiah in the air. We found Isaiah, the Finding Isaiah story. And that lasted until he was about 4 years old. And the child grows, and he became, at 4, the narrative, symbolic, fairy tale, storytelling child, right? The mythic child. So we shifted to a deep, sacred, true story told in the symbolism of our tradition. We said Isaiah, who loved to play in nature. Isaiah paddled in the stream by our house and played with frogs and little tadpoles. Isaiah, you are our baby Moses. You came down the river, this river, as our baby Moses. And he would say, yes, I am baby Moses. And he loved being baby Moses. And this lasted till he was 8. And then I'm driving my SUV, where, as you know, everything happens in the middle row. And I hear Mama, he's talking to his friend. Mama, Johnny says that you are not my mother. My name is not Miller, and I am not Jewish. He was 8 years old. Now, psychology has handled this terribly, horribly. People talk about, I wasn't wanted, I feel sick. So I took a big breath, and it was sooner than I had expected this moment. He turned over to his friend Johnny, and he said, I'm baby Moses. And Johnny said, what? And he said, I'm baby Moses. And Johnny said, what? And then Isaiah realized Johnny just didn't understand. And now there was pain. Mama, and this time he's frightened. Mama, Johnny says, what about the woman who gave me up? And now I took a big breath because his voice was rattling. He was and it came then from the middle row. I know. God whispered in her ear and said that you were crying for me. Mm-hmm. The spiritual child, when he or she uses their natural, authorized way of knowing, has the answers. Mm-hmm. So who are we as parents and as grandparents? We are ambassadors. Right? We don't make the flame, we carry it. But when we carry it and walk the walk, as you do, and talk the walk spiritual values, infuse in our love is a divine love. There's no love in the world like the love of a grandparent or parent. It is a divine love. The child knows the flame to be true. Mm-hmm. So through the lens of science, there's an equal contribution of the lived spiritual values of the parent or grandparent, truly loving the child unconditionally, not necessarily, people have all of their own styles, but a deep, loving, honoring, unconditional love, okay? And a transparency into our own spiritual life, an expressed, lived voice of our own spiritual life. What does that look like? Look at this sunrise. God has given us a new day. I just look at you and your sister and brother, and I know I couldn't have created you. You are a gift of the universe, or whatever your words are, Jesus, Hashem, love. Use your words. That says, we talk about that here. The spiritual reality is real, and our relationship is spiritually grounded. Our family is held in spirit.
Can I follow this with a question?
Please.
So I want just to share a little with you, because you talked about synchronicity. So I want to
Yes, yeah.
So I always worked as a leader with spirituality. So when I was CEO, I brought spirituality to my companies. But it was very concrete, and I use more the word purpose, because I believe that people, when they find purpose, they find a meaning above what they are working, they will transcend. And somehow I really believe that a conscious organization increases the cognitive maturity. So it's much better to work together. And when people join together purposes, and my language I tell that when we are in coherence individually, we can resonate as a group, and we can see what is the emerging future and plan strategies for what is good for to benefit society. And we worked in Roche, so cancer. And in India, I was CEO in India when this happened. So my last assignment, I brought a completely new strategy where purpose and spirituality was in the center. And there was very funny because when the people, after I did all my implementation, and it changed completely how we worked with the stakeholders and government. And my people used to ask me, Lara, how we measure that what we are doing is working, because you are talking about emergent future, to talk to people, see the necessity, the needs and everything, and then start to build the strategies according to this. And we used to measure the way that the strategy was working by the number of serendipities. I call serendipities, but it's synchronicities, yeah? The number of serendipities that happened that allowed us to go further with a strategy. And very funny that in my office, we used to work to have some... Yeah. Can you hear, Lisa? Yes? So yes. We used to sit down together in my office to finish some strategies. And one day, one of the directors told Lara, look at the building, the name of the building that was being built, look the name of the building. And the name of the building was Serendipity. No? So I know that you have scientifically explanation by synchronicities, because I believe that when we know the science behind, it is much easier for us to live it. And if you can share with us the science behind the synchronicities, because I really believe that you don't need to be spiritual and have the flame enlightened the whole time. But if you are in moments that you don't see the right way or whatever, but you share what you are learning, you can make people connect, and then eventually together we can be seeing the emerging future, and the synchronicities that are coming are signs that we are in the right direction. Can you share a little about synchronicities and the science behind it?
Yes, beautiful. Yes. I'll share three things. First, that when we looked at people who are engaging at that very moment in a transcendent relationship, very often there is a profound synchronicity. I saw light in the leaves, and I knew. I was very much struggling. You know, we'd been together for 3 years. We were going to get married. I had an engagement ring. And the week before the wedding, he called it off. I was heartbroken. I felt lost. I felt so unlovable. But then, just that week, my grandparents called. They invited me to come home, and we went to the cathedral where I'd been raised as a child. And sitting there by my grandparents, I felt their great love. And I felt God's love. And I knew, yes, I will love again. Following the golden thread, the hand that welcomes and guides us. Now, when that happens, there are 3 parts of our brain that are engaged. The bonding network that lets us know we are loved and held. The same bonding network that is engaged when we're a baby in our parents' arms. We perceive that universe, God, holds us, loves us. We are guided. We move from a very narrow, I've got to have it, where's my strategy, my red door, dorsal, to a big bottom-up ventral attention network, and the new direction pops. There's the yellow door. There's the trail angel here. This is situationally aware, a synchronicity. Loved and held, guided. And finally, the parietal that puts in and out our boundaries lets us know that we're all distinct and magnificently unique and diverse, and we're part of one family of life. So the person who you met at work, or the person I met for 3 minutes on a bus, or the fellow living being, the robin that came and sat on my, there was a great blue heron before each child came into our lives that flew down the river. everyone is part of this one unitive, like rays from the sun, unitive sacred reality. We are loved, held, guided, and we are never alone. Never alone. The blue herring, the guy on the bus, the woman at work. So, and the third piece is that we did a study a number of years ago and published this, that if we pay attention to synchronicities, perceive them, the proof is in the pudding, as bearing truth, and then act on them. Perceive them, take them as real, the proof is in the pudding, and act on them. We perceive synchronicities more frequently. Now, a piece of that, a small piece, may be that we start to pay attention. And that's very important, that we're present, very important. But I think the more profound point is that we are then participating in a spiritual event where the synchronicities actually heat up. So by engaging our awakened brain, by being present, as you're describing, to the dialogue with our sacred universe, by being in a firm stance of quest, what is life showing me now? What are we having unveiled to us now? It's real, let's say yes and act on it. That potentiates, I think. We don't call on God, God shows up. We don't command the universe shows up. That potentiates more spiritual events because we are participating in, I would say, a dialectic, right? We're of the universe, but we're contributing to the universe.
And
Thank you.
Professor, because folks, Professor Miller has a hard stop in 5 minutes, basically. So if we can take a picture to register this,
Lovely.
this moment.
Yes, lovely.
And if we can have Professor 2-3 minutes for just a final remark here, is it possible?
Yes.
After the picture.
Just the picture first, please.
Lovely.
1, 2, 3. Okay, let's see if it's good.
Excellent. So, Professor Miller, thank you so much once again. Just a final question, short one. It's because you talked about leadership and action, because we are really needing action. We are under a crisis of leadership. This is the truth, right, in our world, in our, I would say, our countries, in our organizations. And you have this concept, which is awakened awareness. And in your institute, in a website, you point out that, helping leaders to develop this awakened awareness is one of your top missions, because this idea of a spiritually grounded decision is a better decision. So
yes,
how can we how important it is, and how can we promote this with the leaders to understand that they have to feel connected with the other people and with the cosmos, as in a bigger sense. So how challenging this is in practice, because you know that we are talking about people who are always living in a rush and with fragmented lives and under strong pressure and stress. So if you could make some remarks on that, please.
And I wanted to add if it is a connection between the number of synchronicities that we can see, and if we see it, we are more certain that we are in the right path.
Beautiful. Okay, beautiful. So let's turn to this extraordinary community. And may I invite you to take a moment and locate a decision you made, an important decision, a moral decision, a big decision, a practical decision, a big decision, based on your deep inner wisdom, based on your heart, your intuition, based on a mystical experience or a synchronicity. A profound synchronicity you could not deny. It would feel like you were rubbing against the universe, going against the river if you denied the synchronicity. I invite you to locate a big decision you made because of a mystical breakthrough, the prayer life, you received direction, your meditation life, in nature. Okay, I welcome you back. Raise your hand if you've made such a decision. Beautiful. Raise your hand if that decision ever steered you wrong. Yes, right. It did not steer you wrong. So I asked that same question to a room full of officers at West Point at the Pentagon. Many people raised their hands. These are important decisions. I said, has it ever steered you wrong? It never steered them wrong. Here, you are global leaders. You are deeply rooted in the consciousness of the unity of reality and Brazil, the natural uterus, the life-giving center of our world. You have this gift, and it has never steered you wrong. So may I invite you to use your voice, your illuminated voice that does wed spirit and mind and heart, that is so much more powerful, more innovative, smarter, stronger, and more full of the information that lies ahead, the creative direction, the inspired direction, I would say the godly consciousness that unfolds for us. That is the way forward. Please use your voice. We need you so much. Take the mantle, put the stake in the ground. And when you do, people will be excited. They'll light up. It gives them permission. They've always thought something more was going on. You've opened the door. You've become the torchbearer.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Professor Miller, on behalf of this group, I'd like to deeply thank you once again for your incredible generosity of taking your time to be with us. And as I said last year, I'm not going to say this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, for sure not. And we hope to see you once again, and hopefully here in Brazil, who knows, huh? We're trying our best to make it happen. And so
I'd love to see you in April. That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Much love. Much love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for being here. Huh?
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. It was wonderful. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.